to reply. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the basics of the European Digital Credentials for Learning. In today's webinar, we aim to cover all the basics of the European Digital Credentials for Learning, but also to reply to all of your questions. For all the questions, we will be using Slido, and you can start posting your questions as from now, and we will cover them in the second part of the webinar. We're very happy to see such a strong interest and to see so many of you joining us today, coming from all the different corners of Europe. So thank you very much for this webinar. And already digging into today's program, we will have different presentation. First, I'm today accompanied by my colleague Kial Kitalo and Ildiko Mazor that will also walk us through the different technical details. First, we will dig into what are actually European Digital Credentials for Learning before going into why are we as a European Commission working on the European Digital Credentials for Learning. Then we'll go into what are the resources available and what are the different tools and how you can get started in your digital credential issuing journey. And finally, we will have a really a small demo so that you can get familiar with the tool before taking all your different questions. So I'm Céline Jambon, Policy Officer at the European Commission, the Director General for Employment, Social Affairs and Inclusions, and I will be moderating today's webinar. So without further ado, we can get started and answer the most burning questions. What are actually digital credentials? Kia.
Thank you, Céline. And indeed, it's a good place to get started, right? Seeing what we're actually talking about. But quite simply, a digital credential is just a digital presentation of our traditional learning credentials. So that is then securely directly received into one's digital wallet. And when we mean any credential, we mean any credential. So it can be a full-fledged diploma, it can be a micro-credential, it can be a certificate of participation, whatever type of claim that relates to one's learning can make a digital learning credential. When we talk about a wallet, it means a secure online space where one can store and visualize these credentials. When we say that these are digital or interoperable, we mean that they are machine readable, that they contain structured data that will be interpreted in a similar way across different credentials. And when we mean that they are verifiable and secure is that we consider these to be tamper evident, that they cannot be altered and you can trust their origin. And to make this a little bit clearer, if you can go to the next slide, Céline, we would also like to show you what this would actually look like in a form of a European digital credentials for learning. So before we go into the why, we also want to give you a little bit of an overview of what this looks like, so it will be easier to follow. So I hope that you would be able to share my view my screen. Yes. So what you're seeing now is my library in Europass. So European Digital Credentials for Learning and Europass work quite well together, and partially this is through the wallet that is in this case integrated within Europass. If you are not familiar with Europass, it is an online portfolio that allows learners to manage all aspects of their career and learning, whether it is creating a CV or a cover letter, creating these job applications, applying for new learning opportunities for new jobs. And within this context, you have a library where you can store your CVs, where you can store your cover letters, and you also have a section for certificates and diplomas. It is this section that acts as the wallet, where you can then seeing these European digital credentials for learning. If you remember the previous slide, we said that a digital credential is directly issued to a wallet. So upon issuing a digital credential, it will directly appear here without any other action necessary from the side of a receiver of a credential if they would already have a Europass account available. However, this is not something that is necessary for your use of EDCs. If they do not have one, they will also receive an email in any case with the credential and attachment instructing them how to create a Europass account and how to store them here, or how to use EDCs if they would not like to have a wallet. But this is what the wallet section would look like. And as you can see here already, EDCs can take different shapes or forms, and they will be showcased here in the thumb. But if you would then open one of these digital credentials, this is what you will see. So the first thing that you will see is a preview of a credential itself, which is a reminiscent of what we think of when we think of our traditional digital credentials. You can choose to customize this to your needs so that it represents the visual identity of your institution. You can choose what information you will include here and how much detail you would want to have. The second thing that you will notice is the authentication verification checks. So we talked about digital credentials being verifiable and secure. This is where this comes into play. So you will see that these are all green, that we can trust in this particular credential. If something would be wrong with it, these checks would appear as red. And this could be that somebody has tried to change the name of a recipient of a credential, for instance, or tried to change their grade for something, or that it has not been sealed using a valid seal. We will go into that a little bit later on, but it is a requirement for digital credentials for them to be digitally signed so that we can trust their origin and integrity. So once we have checked this, we also said that we are talking about structured data, that information is visible in a specific way. This might not be the case for the preview here, but what makes digital credentials special is that you can actually add quite a lot more information than what you would in a regular credential. So if you start navigating these tabs here, you will see that they are extremely data rich, and you can specify learning outcomes, for instance, directly with the linked skills that they will have, any other achievement information that you would want to have included, so volume of learning, the thematic area that is related, whether there are specific learning activities related to this credential, whatever you would want to specify about learning, you can do so here. You will also be able to view the information about who issued this credential. In this case, it is a test organization, and this cannot be altered in any kind of way. So you can always trust the information that is here to be based on a signature. And you will, of course, also have information about the recipient of a credential. Here, it is a quite detailed one, but you can choose how much information you would want to include. Here, you will see that this is a relatively simple credential, but just to give you an idea, here we have another example where we have a transcript of records. First of all, you can see that the preview looks quite different, that you have 2 pages in the preview that shows the different subjects that the person had during their courses. And this will also be reflected in the amount of data that is available here. So you will see that everything that is listed here as subject is also listed here, and you can really provide a lot of different information. And this will be depending on the type of credential you have. Of course, for a transcript or record, this might be a lot more. For a small micro credential, this will be less. it is really flexible for your specific use. And one last thing that I would want to specify here, we talked about how we have a wallet available, and it is from here that you can also share these further. So you have a little share button that will help you create a link to the credential directly, which is always with a valid until date and a specific use that you can choose to edit from your Europass account and control how your data is shared onwards with third parties when you are actually applying for an opportunity. And with this being said, and having a little bit of an idea of how this looks like in the context of UDC, I will pass the floor back to Celine, who will give an idea of why this is available.
Yes, thank you very much, Kia. And you should be able to see the screen. So, why do we need a European standard? First of all, we have different policy objectives regarding digital credentials. First and foremost, we want to support free movement of workers and of, okay, apparently there's a slight problem with the screen sharing. Let me correct that. Now that should be working, right? Okay. So why do we need a European standard in the context of digital credentials? Well, first and foremost, we want to serve the biggest policy objective that we have, that is supporting free movement of workers and learners in the European Union. And digital credentials can be an instrumental tool to support transparency of skills and qualifications, and also can support their recognition. Indeed, and we will show it in more details, it can remove barriers to recognition by making a trustworthy tool available and by providing a new layer of trust into digital documents. In addition, it provides transparency and it supports all the different contexts regarding the field of learning, and it has common understanding of credentials within the European Union. So it provides multilingual semantic standards that are shared throughout Europe, and this builds into the different transparency tools. It also bridges the world of education and training towards the world of employment, meaning that we can describe different concepts that relate to learning outcome, education and training, but also then share information that can relate to entitlements to have access to a specific profession, or it can also describe training that is done in the workplace. It is also a system that supports privacy by design. It is fully aligned with privacy laws, and the credential holder is in control, as Kia has just showed on the screen. You are in control when you receive a credential, with whom you share it, and for how long. In terms of benefits regarding these different standards, the European Digital Credentials for Learning can capture formal and non-formal learning, and they can cover all types and levels of education and training. So it can, of course, be used in higher education, in vocational education and training, general education, but also adult learning. But as I said, it can also be used for training in the workplace, or different non-formal training event or learning activities that one may take part of. And as Kia has also showed, you can also use it for transcript of records or for micro-credentials. So it is a very flexible system to capture and describe all types of learning. It also supports alignment with other models and frameworks, in particular with international standards related to verifiable credential, which is the standard for digital documents. And it is also aligned with European recognition instruments, and there in particular, we want to highlight the alignment with the European qualifications framework, but also with different taxonomies, in particular the ESCO taxonomy. It also supports interoperability, so the standards for digital credentials that has been set up is free and open source, so anyone can reuse it. It is multilingual, available in 29 languages, and it is already used beyond Europass, for instance, by the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure in their education use cases in the context of Erasmus Plus Mobility. And also we have some ongoing work with the single digital gateway. In the long term, when institutions move towards digital credentials, it allows them to save cost and to save time in the issuing process. So this goes as another benefit towards this solution. And finally, credentials are easy to share, to store and verify, and they are data rich. So why do we need digital credential as well? Because as we've seen, it can serve multiple purposes. They have different benefits. We are moving towards an increasingly digitalizing world with additional security and trust that is needed for these different documents, especially in ever-moving landscape of different tools such as generative AI that can create fake diplomas as well. Then there is the context of recognition in the context of labor mobility or learning mobility. It is important that individuals can have their skills and qualification understood, and if necessary, also formally recognized in the country where they are moving. It is also important for individuals to be able to showcase their knowledge and their skills. And this is also particularly important in the context where we move towards more skills-first approaches and recruitment based on top of qualifications, also more and more on actual skills. So to have digital credentials that go to this level of granularity and details is quite important when applying for jobs. And finally, what is very essential is the ownership of data and how the individual being in control and controlling their personal data is really at the core of the whole European Digital Credentials for Learning infrastructure. As you can see on the screen, we have again an example of a wallet within the Europass portal with a lot of different credentials, and you can see it can really adapt to different needs with different look and feel. So we are moving in a world that is becoming increasingly digital and beyond paper. So there is also a need for credentials in the field of learning to adapt to this transition, and also to respond to the different labor market needs. There is also more and more call from individuals to be able to share their credentials online and to have all their credentials in one place so that they can easily be shared and stored. And finally, for the institution, it can, as said, bring cost and time efficiency gains. What is also very important in those digital documents is to have trust and to rely on a layer of security, especially in our case, as we are using, as I said, these verifiable credential international standards that goes beyond what PDF can offer. So to guarantee the authenticity of the document, we rely on an electronic seal that is the digital equivalent to a rubber stamp. And this electronic seal is fully aligned with EU regulation called eIDAS. And this electronic seal contains information, as you can see on the right-hand side of the screen, on the issuing organization. So the legal identity of this organization is clearly visible and cannot be altered. So with this reliance on an electronic seal, it certifies the origin of the digital credential, and it can also support the fight against diploma mills. In addition, and as Kia already showed, when you are viewing a credential, some checks are performed. And we have different checks, and you can see on the right-hand side two instances. One where all the checks go well and everything is fine. And on the very right part of the screen, you can see a series of checks where there has been some tampering with the document. We cannot prevent people from going into their credential and tamper and, for instance, change their grades. But if they do so, it will break the seal. And when someone will view the credential, they can be assured that the credential has been tampered with. So this flag helps also the verifier to have trust in those credentials. And finally, we have this trust in authenticity because the credential metadata cannot be altered after sealing. So as said, once everything is sealed, it cannot be modified anymore. So this brings additional trust that PDF cannot necessarily provide. Regarding the support towards recognition, so first we have this verification of the origin. So as said, the electronic seal provides the trust in the origin and in the issuing organization of the credential. And this is an important part for recognition bodies or for anyone involved in receiving a credential. The structured data is also a way of providing data that is common and shared across Europe. And this allows to have a common and shared understanding of information, and it brings interoperability through the use of a single data model for learning, which is called the European Learning Model. We recently had another webinar on the basis of the European Learning Model that you can consult for more information about the data structure. Then what can also support recognition is the multilingualism. So the European Digital Credential for Learning infrastructure is available in 29 different languages, and you can navigate the content or provide content in all those different languages. Finally, we have interoperability. So there is this alignment with different frameworks, in particular with the European Qualification Framework and the National Qualification Frameworks. The ISCED-F is also can be referenced into the credentials. We can also link ESCO skills to learning outcomes within the credential. And there is also an alignment with the Council recommendation on micro-credential and its annex that specifies what information is needed to describe a micro-credential. And accreditation, finally, is a feature that can be added to accredited credential. So it would, in addition to the different check if the institution is accredited toward a certain qualification. And we are currently building this accreditation feature. At the moment, we have accreditation information for higher education, thanks to the connection that we have with the European Quality Assurance Register. As mentioned as well, so showcasing knowledge and skill is another big reason to move towards digital credentials. So all the different learning achievements can be linked to multiple learning outcomes. And here on the screen, you see a snapshot of how it can look like in a credential. You can provide a very detailed description of the different learning outcome. And for that, we also have different guidance on how to draft learning outcomes. Also, the agency CEDEFOP has been doing a lot of work on supporting the drafting of learning outcomes that can be used for this exercise. And then on top of learning outcomes, you can reference standard knowledge and skills concept from ESCO taxonomy, but also from other distinct taxonomies. And finally, you can link the different learning activities with assessment to show how the learning achievements were assessed and different proofs for the different learning outcomes. And the final move towards digital credentials is also to empower individuals through the data ownership of their digital credential. So the center of the approach is to be really having the learner at the center. So the person is in control of their credential. They can access them instantly and directly from their Europass wallet. If they share the credential, they are fully in control. As Kia has shown earlier, they can decide for how long and with whom they share the link. And finally, there is this bypass of bureaucracy, because as a credential recipient, for instance, as a potential employer, I will not need necessarily to call the university to check that it is a real credential and that the person has actually graduated from there, because of this additional layer of trust and all these different checks that are run in the credential. So this is, in a nutshell, all the different benefits and the reasons why we are moving towards digital credential. And now I will pass the floor to Kia for what is offered actually by the European Digital Credential infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Celine. So indeed, it's good to know what it can be used for and what are the different benefits, but what is concretely offered to you. Essentially, it is everything from A to Z for you to be able to create the credentials as well as for the end user to use them. So we have an online credential builder where anyone can start building a credential template to make sure that these are EDC compliant, and within the system also directly issue them to learners. So this is directly available. You could start right now if you would like. There's no other steps that would be necessary. Then we have the wallet that is used to store the credentials. So what was demoed at the start, it is currently located within Europass, and from there also as demoed, the possibility to share this onwards with third parties. And we have the possibility to actually verify these credentials. So those checks that were seen in the start, establishing the trust in the credentials. So you have everything ready to get started with issuing your European digital credentials as of now. And what is also important to note is that there's no costs associated with the use of any of these tools. The only cost that is linked to this is that of acquiring the e-seal that is used to seal these credentials. But other than that, it is completely free to use. And we have noted here that we have the web tools that are directly available. You will see that the links have also been provided in the chat on how to access these, and Ildiko will be demoing its use in a second, so you will see how it works. But we also have all of this available as a open source version as well. This means that everything that you will see that is a little bit more manual, that would require you to build your templates by hand, can be fully automated. It can be integrated within your existing systems to have the full flow of creating the credentials and issue them completely automatic. And you can even create your own compatible wallet where users can store their credentials without having to go for Europass, if that is what you would like. But to see a little bit more in practice what this would look like, I will pass on the floor to Ildiko.
Thank you very much, Kia. Now I am going to show you the other sides of credentials. Kia already kindly demonstrated their look and feel from the point of view of the credential holder or the credential owner. Now I'm going to show you how these credentials are created. I'm going to share my screen. Please let me know if you can see it. And if it's all good. Yes. So we have already touched on the issuer in the chat. So you know that you are able to access both the visualization part of the platform where you can upload your credentials received by email. What we are interested right now is the part that says credentials for issuers. And you can see on the top of the page, I am already logged in, but if you haven't created or issued digital credentials yet, and you would like to follow the path that Kia showed on the last slide, i.e. using these commission tools and services, you would have to create an online credential builder account. This is the area where your credentials live, your credential templates live. So I'm already logged in, and you will see that I have a lot of credential templates, 5 pages of them. But the one that I would like to show you in the making is the micro-credential that Kia also has demonstrated. When you first log in to your online credential builder, and all you need, once again, is an EU login ID and the password, and nobody else will be able to access these credential templates. These are your personally stored templates. You will be able to create new credential templates, and once you have a set of templates, you can edit them, you can copy them, you can delete them. Now this is already created, but I'm going to show you what the content looks like. So when you first looked at the credential that Kia demoed, you could see that the credential has a title. This is one of the compulsory properties or fields that you have to fill in when you build your credential. By the way, all the credential properties that are compulsory are marked in the online credential builder templates with a little red asterisk. And as you will see during this demo, the number of these is very, very small. If you have the credentials title, you have the credentials valid from date, you choose a credential type, you include at least one or multiple claims. I'll get back to this later. And you have your electronic seal to seal the credential, and you add a delivery address, that is the email or wallet address of the credential recipient. You are able to issue this credential. So in the case of the micro-credential, we already have the micro-credential title. We have selected a valid from date and selected the credential type to be generic. There was a question in the chat that I can answer or address here as well. For the moment, and some developments are in progress or can be foreseen in the future, you can issue 2 types of credentials. Generic, these will only run the authentication and verification checks that Kia already showed on her screen when she showed the look and feel of these credentials. Or if you are issuing qualification awards or special, more restricted credentials that can legally only be issued by certain accredited institutions, then you can choose the accredited credential type. When you do so, in addition to the format, seal, and validity check that you could see on the Kia screen, we are also running an accreditation check. And the accreditation check is going to compare the accreditation information of the credentials issuer or awarding body against our accreditation database. And by the way, if you are issuing an accredited credential, this is the field where you would have to specify the accreditation report reference. This is a direct link to accreditation records in our accreditation database. That is the qualification dataset register. So as I mentioned, we have to have at least one claim linked to a credential to be able to pass the format check. And in this particular case, we are issuing a credential that contains an achievement claim. And this achievement claim is the digital micro-credential creation. I already have this claim, but if you don't, you can create it either by clicking on the Create New button, or you can create these various claims from the Elements section, where you have these various sections of specific credential or credential part templates. And once you have these sub-templates, you can link them to your credential. So let's say you already created your achievement and you're creating your micro-credential. When you click on the achievement field, if you already have created templates in the past, you can just select one of these templates to link them to this particular credential. When you are creating an achievement or activity or assessment claim or template, you will also see that there are 2 compulsory fields that you need to populate. This will be the title of your claim. In this particular instance, the achievement title. This we call digital micro-credential creation. And every claim has to have an awarding body. In this case, our sample organization is called Learning Provider, very creatively. And this also comes from a separate template. We have organization templates. Most often our implementers only have one or two of these. This is basically your institution's detailed information. Here you would have to provide your organization's legal name. You can also supply a common name or an acronym. You don't have to, but you can specify the homepage, a parent organization. In case you are working at a faculty of a university, your parent would be the university. If you are a member of a project or a university alliance, you can interpret this parent organization as an umbrella or parent organization. You don't have to, but you can attach a logo of your organization. Again, you can specify accreditation information. You have to specify at least one legal identifier, but you can also supply others for EIDAS, VAT number, or any other identifier that you find important to identify your organization with. And for the legal address, all you have to do is select the country, but if you want to provide comprehensive information, you are suggested to provide the full legal address, and this is it. In addition to this, you can specify separate contact information. This may or may not be the same as the legal address, specify contact details. And if you are a member of a group, this is different from the parent organization, you can there's a little field section where you can specify this. And once you created your organization template, you can, by a single click, link that to all your templates or claim templates, to be more precise. What Kia also showed is that these achievement claims can also be linked to individual learning outcomes. And this is important because we know that European policies are recommending the use as a smallest common denominator of all learning to focus on learning outcomes. And when you are creating an individual learning outcome, you are able to and have to supply a title. You can select the type of the skill. This is based on the ESCO classification. So we distinguish between knowledge and skills. Skills also cover competences and attitudes in this case. And the reusability level. This may or may not be applicable. It could be sector specific or transversal. And if you want to reference ESCO skills, and if you are not familiar with ESCO, it's the European classification of skills, qualifications, and occupations. They have a multilingual skill and occupation taxonomy. These are linked to each other. So you can reference ESCO skills simply by typing the skill that you would like to reference. And if you are using ESCO skills, you are able to reference these multilingual skill concepts. If you want to reference skills from separate classifications outside of ESCO, as long as the skill taxonomy is published in linked open data format, you are able to reference those as well. These two examples are from the DIGCOMP classification or taxonomy. You can add more information. This is where a short description of a learning outcome could go, or additional fields if you find it necessary. As you can see here, you can associate multiple learning outcomes with a single achievement, and you can have multiple achievements linked to the credential. So this is giving you the opportunity to make your bigger credentials more granular, and also to give structured data even for the tiniest micro-credential that you may wish to offer and issue. On Kia's screen, you also could see that there are multiple attributes of the credential or the claim that you can specify. Where you see these little blue chips, this also means that these are coming from controlled vocabularies. Once again, many of these are multilingual. So when you select the language of an achievement or the type of the achievement, on one hand, you have the possibility to select a concrete concept from a controlled vocabulary. But this also means that because these concepts are translated to a total of 29 languages, when prospective employers or admission officers are evaluating these credentials, they can see what these concepts actually are in their own languages. And this is very important because once you have standardized data, this is very important. That makes the quality more trustworthy and easier to recognize. And this is also important from the point of view, there was another question in the chat, how we can trust the accuracy of the acquisition of these skills. Well, first of all, the skills are multilingual, so the issuer will select these skills. The issuer, by adding their electronic seal to the credentials, certify the accuracy of this credential content. And also something that will come later, as you see, there are lots of other pieces of information you can supply about the mode of learning, the type of learning, volume, maximum duration, credit points, etc. You can also specify assessments. So a learning achievement is different from an activity from the point of view of the achievement of learning outcomes is usually proven by an assessment. In this case, let's say an exam or a test. And once you supply this additional information that is also linked to your credential, you are able to document and communicate how this acquisition of these skills and learning outcomes was proven. Was it a supervised exam with ID verification? Was it an oral exam or just a quiz? By providing this information and some other details about the grading scheme and what certain types of grades mean, you are allowing the third-party viewers of a credential to assess the value and reliability of these credentials. For your achievements, you also can link activities that led to achievements. This is not always applicable, but usually you take a course and that will lead to these assessed learning outcomes. And you can also specify levels. If it's a qualification, you can select EQF or National Qualification Framework levels. If it's just a regular generic credential, you can specify your own level, beginner, advanced, etc. Once you are done building your credential, you may or may not supply your custom HTML template. If you don't specify this, we give you a default subtle look and feel. And once you're finished with your credential, you can proceed to issuing it. And you may have noticed that in those templates, there's no personal information that the users supply. This is happening in the last step of the issuing process for the purposes of privacy preservation. And here is the part where you can select what you want to specify about your credential recipients. Once you decide how you identify your learners, it could be a minimum name and one delivery address. In addition to that, you can select date of birth, place of birth, ID numbers, registered address, etc. Once you're ready to do that, you can either download an Excel template that you can populate with your learners' information. This is recommended when you're issuing larger batches of credentials with more customized information, or you can proceed to filling in this information in a browser-based template, in which case all you have to do is select or provide different fields. So in this case, let's say Anna Andromeda, she has an email address. We give her a grade because this is a multilingual credential. You would have to provide the grade in the multiple languages. You confirm that your organization's data protection policy allows you to share this data with Europass, but only for the duration of the session while the credentials are created. After that, this information is erased from cache and there's no trace of the credential data. Once you finished this step, the EDC issuer is going to generate the credentials. If you have a larger batch, then obviously it will be a larger batch. Because I only supplied one, then you only see one. You can preview your credential by clicking on the eye icon. Here you will see the familiar look from Tia's presentation. Once you're happy with the content, and you see here what I showed, that there are the ESCO references and other references, you can proceed to sealing your credential. You can seal on your own behalf. You would have to have either a qualified or an advanced electronic seal that is eIDAS compliant, or you can mandate another issuer, in which case you would have to click this little box. If you're certifying the authenticity of a credential that is issued by another organization, you will be able to supply an additional mandate claim and or upload a mandate document. This is normally a signed PDF that shows that organization A is authorizing organization B to issue credentials on their behalf. And once you're done with this, you can proceed to sealing. In this case, I select from my Windows Key Store my advanced electronic seal. Then I will get a pop-up window that will inform me that this will be the information displayed under the Issuer tab. This is correct. That's the seal I want to use. Once I proceeded to sealing, I will see that the credential was successfully sealed. And once I press send, these credentials that I created are going to be sent to their owners. Now, because I didn't supply a real Europass wallet address, this credential will only be issued by email, and Anna Andromeda will receive an email with an attachment. But if I supply Europass account or wallet address, or I'm sending a credential to an email with which an account is already registered, then these credentials are automatically deposited into the credential as well. That was a very quick and dense demonstration of how to use the issuer. I stop sharing my screen, and if there are any questions further on, I think I'm giving back the word to Kia.
Indeed. And while we're getting back to presentation, the idea here is that now that you have an idea of what a credential could look like and how you would actually go about building this concretely, how would you actually get started on your side? The first step to take would be to see who would actually need to be involved. Generally, you will need to think about whoever decision makers in your institutions who need to be on board with this type of initiative. As you will have seen from Ildiko's demo, you will definitely need to involve the individuals who are responsible for the credential content. So that will be in some cases teachers. It might be the person who has created a syllabus for a certain course, whoever this might be. Usually they will be crucial in seeing what information is actually available, especially in terms of learning outcomes to be specified, the skills to be linked. It is really crucial to involve them early on in the process so that you can also get as much data to include in your credentials and have them to be as meaningful as possible. You will also need to think about involving somebody from your IT department or somebody with at least minimal IT expertise. It is not necessary to have a developer on board or somebody with really high IT skills in order to start using our web tools. However, what Ildiko didn't show and what we didn't go through in this presentation is that to customize the credential look and feel, you will need to know some HTML formatting. And here, having somebody who's familiar with this would be really useful. So consider whether there is somebody within your IT team or somebody with higher IT skills within your team that could help here. Then decide on a pilot. Moving completely towards digital credentials on the scale of an institution can be a little bit overwhelming. And it can be a large-scale operation, so it's easier to start small. Usually, our implementers tend to start with a certificate of attendance for a conference or a webinar, for instance. They might start with employee trainings at the level of a university instead of going directly to the students. There might be credentials just for exchange students or a single course credential, something smaller that is easier to manage and that can get you familiarized with the system and how this could work if you would go to a larger scale. Once you have decided what this pilot could be, you will need to think about the design of your credential. So there's two aspects of it. One will be this preview image and the look and feel that you would want to apply there. What information do you want to have included in this first page? And this is usually the easier part because in most cases you will have a traditional credential that you can base yourself on, or maybe a PDF version that you can see, okay, how can I actually convert this to a digital credential, and it might be a little bit easier. The second part will be thinking what metadata, what additional details do I want to include in this credential? How do I want to make this really meaningful in terms of data? Whatever do I want to include the learning outcomes? Do I want to include the volume of learning? What is it that I want to specify here? And listing this information and what you would have available on your level will take a little bit longer time. And especially when you go to the next step, which is mapping this credential data to the ELM fields, so to the fields that are available in the online credential builder, and that Ildiko showed. So the ELM is the European Learning Model, which is at the how the data is structured in the online credential builder as well. And the language use can be a little bit different from what you are using within your organization. So it might take a little bit of effort of seeing, okay, this is what we mean by thematic area. This is here we're using the SKDF ones in OCB. So it's just a comparing of the different data fields and making sure that it matches and that you're using the same vocabulary consistently. Then a little bit of a more practical thing that you will have to take into consideration is the acquisition of the electronic seal. So an electronic seal can be acquired by a trust service provider. There is a list of these available at EU level where you can get them. And the advice is to shop around a little bit, see which would be the most convenient for you. A couple of things to highlight here is that not all countries have trusted service providers that provide a qualified or advanced seal that will be required for this, but that is not a blocker in any kind of way. You can acquire it from a trust service provider in another country. And the same applies internationally. The trust service providers are based in EU countries, but it is possible for non-EU countries to contact them as well. It will be up to the trusted service provider themselves to see what they offer. And then Ildiko mentioned the possibility of a mandated issue. So especially if you're working as a consortia, if you're working as a university alliance, for instance, you might want to think about the different options for sealing. Will each university be sealing individually? Would you have consider having a university sealing on behalf of a alliance? In some cases, this will be on a national level, but a national authority will be sealing on behalf of specific institutions. What would be the most workable option for you? And this is also something where, and all of these questions, by the way, are things that we have a lot of expertise on, and we will provide support going further than just how does the online credential builder work. If you have questions on how to map your data, on what should I take into consideration when I'm considering my options for sealing, our team is more than willing to help and available for support on these questions. But once you have completed this planning stage, you can go into your first experience. If I could have the next slide, please. And start executing. So once you have this mapping that we talked about, it should be easy to start building your templates in the online credential builder. Once you have the data available, you can think, okay, this is how I am going to build it step by step, seeing how these different parts will relate to each other, as Ildiko showed, and then have these essentially ready to go to when you want to start issuing your digital credentials. Then you will need to consider your options for gathering and including personal data. Ildiko already demonstrated that the personal data is not stored anywhere on the platform, and that the data privacy considerations are taking into account. However, this is something that you will need to think about as an organization on at which point you're gathering the data, how are you transferring it to a platform, who is handling this personal information. We make sure that everything is safely handled once while the credentials are created, but how to gather and include this here and which information to include about the person, that is completely up to you. And will be a consideration for most organizations. Once you have all of this ready, you can, and you've acquired your electronic seal and thought about how you're going to do the sealing, start issuing some test credentials. I saw some questions on whether we have a sandbox environment or still available. Unfortunately, we do not. However, we do recommend issuing mock credentials to start off with clearly indicated mock data and mock personalities, and this way you can actually test that everything is working correctly. And then finally, you will have to assess how you will organize the issuing process from an organizational perspective. Ildiko showed how the online credential builder works, and that it's a personal account. Somebody has access to the templates. Somebody else might have access to the seal. This is especially becoming something to consider when you have a consortia again working together. Who's handling what part, and how do you want to organize this to make sure the flow is as smooth as possible? This is something that will be more relevant when you're actually doing a pilot than if you would have this integrated on your side where you can actually automate this flow, but it is something to take into account to see that each step is clearly defined and that this is all going in accordance with also GDPR concerns. And that is pretty much it. Then once you have considered all of this, you are ready to go and you can start issuing. How quickly this can go will depend on your credential, how big it is, how quickly you would want to get this done. But to give you a little bit of an idea, we've had people who have been ready to go within a couple of weeks as well. So it's not something that has to take a long time. It is really up to you to see the level of complexity that you want to put into this. And I think you will have questions specific to your particular instances, and we are excited to get into those. Back to you, Celine. We cannot hear you, Celine.
Thank you. So thank you very much, Kia and Ildiko, for the detailed demo and presentation and giving us all this information and tips on how to get started. The Slido has been very active, as well as the chat. So now we're moving towards the Q&A part of the webinar. So we will start by answering the Slido questions that are on the screen. So there's way more questions that we've received, but this is the first batch of questions. So perhaps we can get started with the first one that got the most votes. How long are credentials valid, and will they expire or need to be updated? And I think for that question, Ildiko, you can give a reply.
Thank you. So the credentials validity is applicable to certain types of credentials. Indeed, some professional development has to be redone periodically. There is an optional credential property, which is the valid until or expiry date, that the issuer can specify if the said credential is expected to expire. Another way of looking at credential expiration is the expiration of the electronic seal, because these seals do expire. If these credentials are stored in a Europass wallet, however, then these credentials, once issued, automatically get re-timestamped by the wallet, and they can live a longer life and allow their users to use these credentials even if the issuing organization no longer exists or merged.
Thank you very much, Ildiko. And I think we can take another question that goes in the same direction on validity. So is the credential human readable outside of the Europass platform? For example, the Europass CV can be shared as a PDF. Can credentials be shared in a similar way?
That's correct. Kia has already shown in her demonstration the share link, which allows you or the credential holders to create a share link. This always has an expiration date. This is to protect from unintended use over time. You apply for a job, the application deadline is the end of January. You make sure that your share link is only valid until, let's say, first week of February. So the HR representative of the company where you're applying for a job can see your credentials through the share link until that first week of February. Once the expiration date of the share link expires, they can no longer access the credential content. Also, what we didn't specifically show you, but if you're opening a credential from your wallet, there is also an export option that allows you to export a so-called summary PDF. And this will basically contain the summary images or the preview images of the credential, usually a single page, but in case of the transcript of record that Kia also demonstrated, there are 2 pages, followed by a momentary snapshot of the authentication and verification checks and a QR code that also has a valid until or expiry date. So these PDFs can be used and can be printed. So they are absolutely human readable and require no technology use. But thanks to the QR code, they can also be scanned and then consulted online.
Thank you very much, Ildiko, for all this additional information and for highlighting additional features of the infrastructure. Now moving on to the next question that deals with interoperability. We have the following. The EU has 2 main initiatives regarding digital wallets for credentials, Europass and EPSI. Are there any preferences? Do you have any recommendations on what is better to use? So first of all, we want to highlight that at Commission level, the main wallet initiative is actually the European Digital Identity Wallet that is under development and that is under preparation by member states. Europass with EDC or EPSI with the learning credentials that they offer, we are more looking at the issuing process of these digital credentials. What is actually the very good news is that we are using quite a similar technology. So we are both using verifiable credentials and we are using the same data model called the European Learning Model. So there is a lot of alignment between the two. And because today is a basics webinar, so the important thing to know is that there are synergies between the 2 initiatives. And we have demoed in the past to EPSI users how they can also make use of the EDC infrastructure to create EPSI compliant learning credential. If you have more advanced questions on how to do so, we invite you to contact us via email, and the team has posted the link in the chat. Now, moving to the next question, and we've had actually a lot of questions as well on open badges or the link with other types of certificates. So can you create in Europe as a badge certificate issues like in Badger, or will there be in the future? At this moment, I do not see it. Perhaps, Ildiko, you want to give a bit of a glimpse of what also is a bit coming up in that regard?
Sure. So I would like to divide this into two questions. So badges, you can store any document in your Europass, but this requires manual upload. And for the creation of a certificate, this is the online credential builder that is not part of Europass per se. We have the separate URL for the EDC issuer, and as part of the EDC issuer, there's the online credential builder that I demonstrated, and my colleagues already pasted the link to it into the chat a couple of times. So at the moment, this is something that you can already do. But there are multiple initiatives as well for standard mapping. There's schema mapping exercises. There are projects focusing on interoperability, conversion, and even initiatives focusing on trying to issue or create technical artifacts, if you like, that would validate both as badges as European digital credentials for learning. This is a technical issue, so we shouldn't go into details, but on the Futurium group, you can find related threads if you're interested in joining the conversation.
Thank you very much, Ildiko. And maybe again to highlight, we're still part of the Europass framework, so Europass is our legal base for all this digital credential. I think it's also quite important to set what is our legal basis for all this IT development. On the next question, how will this help an employer or educational institution in one part of Europe being able to trust that a candidate have the indicated skills when earned in a different part of Europe? How do we build trust in skills evaluation from issuers we probably never heard of? And that is indeed a very good question. And that is also why, as European Commission, we have been doing a lot of work to increase transparency and common understanding of skills and qualifications. And first and foremost, we have the European Qualifications Framework, this Council recommendation that goes towards a learning outcome approach, and that sets 8 different levels for qualifications, and for which all EU member states have mapped their national qualifications framework to. So we are working also in different ways for increasing this transparency. There is also the Bologna process in higher education. We also have the Council recommendation on micro-credential to also create this trust around micro-credential. So it goes beyond having a common tool. There is also all this policy and other work going on towards transparency. But I think I can also, for the more technical part, hand over to the team to complement the response. Kia or Ildiko?
I would definitely like to add that, of course, as I demonstrated in how to use the OCB, and Kia lightly touched upon this, because we distinguish between separate types of claims, there is a difference between achievements claims that are normally supported by assessments, which with all the additional structured data about the assessment process, the assessment modes and types, increases the trustability or trustworthiness of the claim. But also, as briefly we mentioned, there are certain types of credentials, usually degrees and qualification awards, that can only be issued by accredited organizations. And when this is the case, then from that accreditation report that is referenced in the accredited credential, and this cannot be skipped, because there's this direct link to more structured data, the third-party viewer from a different country can see that the credential issuer, or more precisely the awarding body, is actually legally authorized to issue that type of credential, which in turn is linked to those learning outcomes, and the learning outcomes are linked to the skills. However, there are, of course, instances where learning achievements are the result of lifelong learning or non-formal or informal learning. When an issuer certifies the acquisition of these skills by applying their electronic seal, they certify that statement that it's accurate. So they are legally responsible for what claim they make about their individuals. And because there's this difference between the generic and accredited credential, non-formal and formal, EQF and NQF leveled or not, because of this rich data, the third-party viewers from whatever country and whatever domain are able to assess the quality, value, and reliability of this information by themselves or by with the support of machines.
Thank you very much, Ildiko, for the reply. So moving on now to the next question that is more linked to wallets. So the Europass account is linked to a wallet account. How exactly? Ildiko, do you want also to give us a reply here?
Sure. Again, because this is not a technical webinar, our answer or presentation of this was indeed very brief. But basically, and this was mentioned a few times, Europass is the first implementer of the European Digital Credentials for Learning code. As such, the EDC wallet or Europass wallet is incorporated into Europass. From the eyes of the viewers, you just see this as a document section in the person's My Library in Europass. But basically, this is its own technical component that is kind of independent but linked to Europass. And please excuse me for not giving you more technical information. You can consult the team. You have the functional mailbox address in the chat if you would like to get further information.
Thank you very much, Ildiko. The next question is again about trust in the content of the credential. So is it mandatory for a European credential for learning that its learning outcomes must have been assessed? In my book, certificates of mere participation without any evidence of learning outcomes achieved would not qualify as credentials. Thank you for clarifying. So here we can perhaps go back to our definition of a digital credential. So when we mean by digital credential is a claim about a person, about their learning. This is how we are using the word credential in this context. So it is very broad afterwards on how you can use it. And that's also how we explained at the beginning that then the EDC can be used for any type of learning documentation. So it can be for certificate of participation, it can be for micro-credentials, it can be for some entitlement to access a certain profession or to enroll in further training. But it can also be for full degrees and for qualifications. So there is a big variety. It is also a very flexible model, meaning that there can be an assessment of learning outcome, but there is no mandatory property forcing an issuer to add all the information. So you could have a full qualification that is part of a national qualification framework that has gone through for every module of the qualification a specific assessment, but it is not referenced in the credential itself. So we still have this flexibility in the model. So it is also why the richer the credential is, the more trust and the more information the person viewing the credential and having, for instance, to make a decision about hiring someone, the more beneficial it is, the more information you have. This is what we can say. I mean, of course, for full qualification, there must be an assessment of the learning outcome that is also part of the common definitions. Perhaps someone from the team want to add as well on this question?
Perhaps a small comment that exactly because of what Celine just said, we recommend the consideration of what claims you would like to include in your credentials. If you think that what you certify is just participation, then use an activity claim. If you would like to document the acquisition of particular learning outcomes with or without linked skills, then use the achievement claim. But also we strongly recommend that when you are using achievement claims, you also take advantage of using the linked assessment claims, because normally an achievement would mean that it's not just sitting through a course, that but also that if you sat through a course, which is a linked activity claim, after the activity, you do get subjected to assessment of the acquired learning outcomes.
Thank you very much, Ildiko. Now moving on to a question regarding electronic seal. So how does the university obtain the EC required for Europass and the awarding of European H2 credentials for learning? Ildiko or Kia?
Sure. So we mentioned earlier on that there's a list of trust service providers available. I hope that my colleagues can paste that link in the chat. Essentially, you will, as a university or any other organization, simply need to contact one of these trust service providers and get their offer on how this will work. It is obtaining a legal signature, so there's usually quite some documents that you need to provide for this, and you do need to have a legal entity in order to get one. But more than that, we cannot really give details, as the exact process will also depend on the trust service provider itself. But contact them and get more information.
Yes, thank you very much, Kia. And I think we can also take one question that is quite at the back on seals as well. So can several individuals seal a credential, or does one person need to build another designated person to seal? Should we have one EU login for building the templates and sealing? Perhaps we can also take that question. Kia, if you want to continue.
Sure. This is actually up to you. So I mentioned also in the last steps on how to get started when you need to decide on what the flow of building and issuing the credentials will look like for your organization. This is exactly what you need to think about here. The EU login accounts are personal, so generally only one person will be able to access the templates, but that doesn't mean that this needs to be the person sealing and sending the credentials. You can actually transfer the unsigned credentials, as we call them, to another person who will just be in charge of the sealing part. You might have different people building the different credential templates, for instance, who have the teacher of a specific course, or however you might want to choose to do this. There are plenty of ways to get around this, so it's more thinking from your own perspective, what would be the logical flow for us and who should be involved in what stage, and then see how to do this from the side of the EDC infrastructure.
Thank you very much, Kia. Now moving to the next question that is more related to issuing a credential. Do I understand it correctly that EDCI issuer is a closed ecosystem with Europass? How can we get the certificates in Europass when they are generated with something like open batches? I think here, perhaps Ildiko, you want to take the question?
There was a similar question before, to which I replied by saying that if you want to upload any kind of credential or electronic document, PDF, JPEG, or PNG image, it could be even a photocopied old type of paper degree or certificate, or a PDF that you receive from MOOC platforms, etc. All these documents, electronic documents, can be uploaded to Europass. But from the point of view of the closed system, what the European Digital Credentials for Learning infrastructure can offer as an additional service is the very important authentication and verification checks. And those can only be run on the EDCs. So you can store these other types of files in your Europass library. You can share them as you wish, but you can't guarantee the authenticity or that there is no tampering with these documents. So that's basically the separation between these different types of documents.
And maybe as an addition here as well, that you can use the open source version of EDC to create your own wallet where you would be able to store whatever you would like. And same that you can use the open source versions to create your own instance of EDC issuer that would not necessarily be linked to Europass. So it is not a must, but the legal basis is with Europass, as Celine mentioned several times.
Thank you very much. I think we can also say that here I think we have replied also to that question. So you can, of course, upload more than PDF to your Europass account. As Ildiko mentioned, there are plenty of different documents you can upload to your library. And then in addition, you can store those verifiable credentials. Now moving to the next question. Who guarantees that this authentication and verification check is trustworthy? Who is responsible for it? Ildiko or Kia, do you want to start replying to the question?
No. So basically, this is a technical verification. When you look at those authentication and verification checks on the right hand side, if you can remember the demo of the issued credential from Kia, those authentication and verification checks always run instantly and automatically based on the credential that is by its native format a JSON LD file. And once it is sealed, you can flag and identify if the credential has been tampered with. The authentication of the issuer happens by checking the seal, and the seal contains information about the legal name, the legal identifier, alternative name, I think, and the country of registration of the organization whose seal has been applied to the credential to issue it. And this can be consulted from the credential metadata by these automatic authentication and verification checks. So once again, first one is the format check, that it's technically correct, all the compulsory information required by EDC's title, information about the credential subject, which is the person, and the claim about the person, etc., is correct technically. The seal check, that the seal has not expired and it truly does belong to the organization, that was verified by the trust service provider. It's really difficult to get these e-seals. And then, of course, there's the validity check, which is quite simply comparison of today's date to the expiry date of the credential, if there is one specified for the credential. So you may open a credential today and it's still valid, but if you open it next day, it already expired on Friday. So you will be able to see different sets of authentication and verification check results. So this, I believe, should be considered as trustworthy because you cannot tamper with the verification checks. And as I mentioned, these are the components that are being checked. In the case of accredited credentials, there's also this additional check of the awarding body of the claim against the accreditation database. And those accreditation records are super detailed. They mention not only the name of the organization that is accredited, but also who accredited, reports, validity of the accreditation report, restrictions for jurisdiction, credential type, EQF level, thematic area. So all this massive amount of data is represented in accredited credentials and can be checked against when a credential is open, either from a share link or from an individual's wallet or by direct upload of the credential into the EDC viewer.
Thank you very much, Ildiko, for digging a bit deeper into the trustworthiness and the layer of trust of the European Digital Credentials for Learning. Now, related again to the question of trust is the next question. How can organizations be registered to issue EDCs? What level of authenticity checking or quality control is implemented? And is there any guidance or process documentation we can refer to? Perhaps, Kia, you can start replying because that would complement quite well what you presented earlier on the journey to get started with EDC.
Sure, certainly. So the easy answer is that you do not need to be registered to issue EDCs. Anyone can get started directly. So there is no check on the institutions that are issuing credentials. The only thing that you will need to do is to create the EU login account, which I'm sure that many of you already have. And if you don't, it's simply registering online. You do not have to register or go for a registration process for your institution. It is a personal account. When it comes to the level of authenticity and checking the quality control that is implemented, this comes really from the electronic seal. So when you're acquiring your electronic seal, as mentioned, you will have to provide quite a bit of documentation. It is like acquiring a rubber stamp for your institution. It is a high level of legal validity in this signature. If you want to know more about this, you can read the EIDAS regulation or also come back to us directly via email. But this is really where this check is coming from. It is not when you're signing up for a platform. It is when you're signing a credential that you put the trust in the organization that is actually signing it. It comes from a signature itself. When it comes to the guidance or process documentation, we do have this available, and we're in the process of constantly updating it. It's available on the Europass pages. We will post this here in the chat. So there's a step-by-step explanation on how to go about creating your credentials. And on Futurium, you will also find videos on how to create a micro-credential step-by-step, for instance, and a lot of other additional materials. And of course, you can also get in touch with our support team, who is happy to help with anything that would not be covered in the materials available.
Thank you very much, Kia, for all these additions. And we can also highlight that in the end, the whole source of trust is really relying on this electronic seal and on the issuer. So it is really then up to the verifier to also have this trust in who the issuer is. And that's why this electronic seal with all this information is also so important. We also want to say that even if we have many open source implementation, the verifier is not open source. So there is only a single instance there. Moving towards the next question, and I think we will try to wrap up the webinar with the 10 remaining questions on the screen. For all of the other pending questions, we are replying either directly to people, or we will try to cover them in our answers when there is some overlap in topics. So companies often offer in-house training program, which makes them very efficient, especially for the small companies. The administrative burden would probably be very high to implement the new system. What solutions do you see here?
Maybe I can take this one. As I mentioned, there should not actually be that much administrative burden. So if you're talking about an in-house training program, this will most likely not be a very big credential. You will probably have overlap in how these credentials are structured, and it will not be too much work to actually create a credential template on this. As we're talking for a small company, you would not need to have any kind of IT integration for it. You could probably use the available web tools directly. So honestly, my personal estimation for how quickly you could get this done, assuming that everything goes smoothly with the acquisition of your electronic seal, you should be up and running in a couple of weeks already. It should not be something very difficult to get in place. And if you would have any doubts and you don't know where to get started, I keep on promoting myself as part of the support team. We are more than happy to help here.
May I also add that if you're super tiny and you are not legally registered, remember that we also have available the mandating function, wherein you can ask somebody or mandate a larger institution or organization that does have an electronic seal to sign on your behalf. So we have everybody covered. It's a very inclusive and flexible system.
All right, thank you very much. And indeed, we really try to cater for many different use cases. And as the team said, you can really contact them on the support mailbox. But we also have this Futurium as well that is available. Moving on to the next question. So can the tool handle multi-level credentials? For example, if there are these 4 credentials, you automatically get an overall credential. We need ways to navigate the problem of scaling these, where a person could easily have thousands of credentials. So I reply by saying that we do not have the possibility at the moment to stack different credentials. So this is something that we have not too much work towards at the moment, mostly because also at a political level, there are a lot of discussions ongoing regarding the stacking of micro-credentials. But as the discussions will progress, we will also then reflect later on in the tool the outcomes of those more policy discussions. The next question on how are we going to organize that learning outcomes in one country counts on the same level in other countries. So here again, we can rely on transparency tools and other documents. So as I mentioned earlier, we have the European Qualifications Framework that presents 8 different levels for which qualifications can be referenced to. So qualifications that are part of a national qualifications framework get a level. And as this qualifications framework is referenced to the European Qualifications Framework, we have this translation grid that is available. So this is how you can see different comparison or that you can get an idea at European level of the different levels of learning outcomes. We also have a specific tool in the Europass platform where you can also compare different levels of the qualification framework with one from another EU country or with the EQF. So that is also something that is provided. Moving to the next question, who can give out credentials also on alliance level? Perhaps Kia, you want to give a reply?
Sure. So as we mentioned, anyone can issue credentials, and for the sealing part of it, the only prerequisite is for acquiring the seal is that you do need to have a legal entity. In the case of university alliances, we know that this is not the case for all of them. So as we have university alliances who are already issuing credentials, one of our earliest implementers was ECIU, for instance. They have chosen different ways of addressing this issue, actually. So some of them have created a legal identity for the alliance itself and have the alliance issuing the credentials on behalf of the full alliance with their seal. Some others have chosen a single university from within the alliance that would acquire the seal or already had one and is then using the mandated issue function to issue on behalf of the other ones. In other cases still, they chose to go with a way that each university would have their own seal. So it's really up to each alliance to choose how you would go about this. Anything is possible.
Thank you very much, Kia. And I think that also replies to the question below on how can European university alliances issue credentials? Would they be recognized as an entity or one organization? So I think that also covers quite well this question. Moving now towards the use case of institutions outside the EU area. So what are the preconditions to exchange two credentials there? Kia or Indico, do you want to start replying?
Certainly. Generally, the use of EDC infrastructure is available to anybody, so there's no restrictions on whether this is a EU, non-US set. You simply have to create an account and it's ready to use. However, there is the part on the electronic seal that comes up again. Some trusted service providers do provide these seals to non-EU entities. Others, we have understood, do not necessarily. So this is something that you can then check, but there is nothing as such that is stopping you from using using the EDC infrastructure. However, when it comes to accredited credentials, there will be additional restrictions in place because the accreditation database that we're using only covers EU countries or European countries a little bit wider.
Yes, indeed, because for all this work and all the work of Europass, we also collaborate with countries from the European Economic Area. We also cover and collaborate with candidate and potential candidate countries. So we are really collaborating much closer in the bigger European family. So, and as Kia mentioned, there is some possibility we do not restrict by countries of origin, but indeed then it is the acquisition of the electronic seal that might be a bit different if it is not an EU country.
I'll say quickly that mandated issue is also an option here, of course.
That's it. That is, of course, correct, indeed. Then moving towards the next question, can NGO issue micro-credentials for the course they have created during the Erasmus Plus project in higher education? We also had other questions related, for instance, to COVs, creating EDCs, or to other type of projects issuing EDC. So once again, Kia, you can give a reply, and I'm pretty sure mandated issue might be mentioned again.
Illico, sorry, I blanked out for a second.
For the sorry. Yeah, the NGOs, yes. So NGOs can, just like everybody, issue micro-credentials. And small footnote, micro-credentials are still a fluid term in terms of definitions. We have a council recommendation for what the compulsory content of a micro-credential is, but micro-credentials can be interpreted different ways. Basically, what the NGO can do is, if you have your electronic seal and you can attest to the authenticity, origin, and integrity of the content, you can certify any claim of anybody. Where there is a restriction is really when you start applying the European qualification framework or national qualification framework levels. So for a simple course that whether it was offered by a higher education institution or a non-formal training provider, if it's an activity credential or just a non-qualification or partial qualification type credential, you can issue this, but you are certifying as an NGO the authenticity of the credential and the content. And you can, of course, reference the higher education institution who may have been the organization conducting the activity. What we haven't mentioned before is that the infrastructure and the model is flexible enough to distinguish between roles. A credential can be issued with claims contained within that are awarded by one or multiple organizations. It could be, an activity could be organized by somebody other than the awarding body, and the issuer organization, again, could be a completely different organization. And in some use cases, there's a very clear formal distinction between the awarding bodies and the issuers. Once again, we're not going to go into technical details, but the simple answer is that yes, an NGO can issue micro-credentials for a course they have created during the Erasmus Plus project.
Thank you very much, Ildiko. And again, to stress, it's not limited to NGOs. It can be any organization for different Erasmus Plus projects in different sectors. There were earlier questions also about the VET sectors and the COVs. So this is also possible for all these different projects. Now I suggest we take the next two questions on accreditation a bit together because there are some overlap. So can you say more about the list of accredited providers? How can an education provider get on this list? And is accreditation possible on institutional level or at specific learning outcome or module that is awarded with the credential? Ildiko, you want to start on accreditation?
Happily. It's a very good question because the asker probably knows that there are different types of accreditation records. Currently, the accreditation database that is part of the Qualification Dataset Register, the QDR, is content from European level that is supplied and published by ECAR. And ECAR is a very has a very rich quite comprehensive. Kia can probably supply details about where we might be missing data. But if you do go to the ECAR website, and my colleagues will probably paste the link into the chat, you are able to browse the various accreditation records that are valid for either an institution or an institutional accreditation or program level accreditation. And because these records are linked to accredited credentials, when you issue an accredited credential, you will be able to automatically, by providing that one single reference or link to the accreditation record, you're automatically pulling all that big bunch of data about the organization or the program that is being accredited. So basically, to answer the first question, the accredited providers, this is what you could refer to as our trusted list of accredited organizations, is coming from our accreditation database that currently mostly holds accreditation data from the ECAR's database. And there is distinction between the institutional level and the program level accreditation, and often they are specific to certain thematic areas, restricted to certain qualification framework levels, first cycle, second cycle, third cycle, or even have other types of restrictions to the jurisdiction where the credential can be issued or the credential type. I think I covered everything. If not, Kia will probably supplement.
Maybe a quick thing that we can add our quality assurance.
Yes, so we have mainly we encourage our users to take advantage of the accreditation database and reference accreditation records when they're issuing accredited credentials. However, we do know that quality assurance does not always result in accreditation. So we distinguish again between accreditation and quality assurance. And for the second type, where institutions, for example, run self-assessment, they are able to manually create accreditation templates, we call them. There's a special section of elements in the online credential builder where you can manually either recreate a report that is published on the ECAR website or that you have on your own institutional files. And you will be guided through this very specific form that will ask questions about the type of accreditation or quality assurance, that will ask about validity, etc. If you would like to know more about this, you can either contact us or ask your questions in Futurium. But these accreditation or quality assurance details, although shown in a special box in the EDC viewer, these will not allow you to issue accredited credentials and run the accreditation check. So these would still have to be further data references in generic credentials.
Thank you very much, Kia and Ildiko, for walking us through all the details of accreditation in the EDC context. Now moving on to our last question of today's webinar, quite important. So how could I display in the viewer a list of activities in a specific order, such as chronological order? Ildiko, you want maybe
yes.
highlight upcoming changes that are...
So yes, very happy to announce that without a date, but our team is already working on this. JSON, the native file format of European Digital Credentials for Learning, do not support ordering. So we have already noticed that when you have multiple claims or subclaims in your credential, they are displayed in a random order. Now, sometimes this is absolutely fine, and in very many cases, you only have a single claim, so the order doesn't matter. But we do realize that in the case of some specific types of credentials, chronological or alphabetical or other types of manually determined order is important. So for this reason, in the next version of the European Learning Model, the model that supports and is the underlying basis of European Digital Credentials, we already introduced the property of ordering. And the next or some follow-up developments will concern the EDC issuer and the viewer. And we will develop a function wherein you can determine the actual order of the claims and subclaims in your credential. Like I said, we don't have a date yet, but this is a known request and our team is working on it.
Thank you very much. And with that, we are wrapping up the Q&A session for today. So again, thank you very much for staying with us and for all your active questions during today's webinar. For the more technical questions, especially we got a lot of questions on interoperability or on API, we will get in touch with you via the Slido reply after this, after we close the session. We will also make a small overview of all the different questions so you can find all this information available. If you come up with more questions after this webinar, especially as you start exploring the different tools, please do not hesitate to get in touch with our support team and to join our Futurium group. Again, we want to thank every one of you for staying with us for almost 2 hours. Thank you again for all your interest. Thank you as well to the team for all the different preparation and for their intervention today. So Ildiko, Kia, Keras, Luisa, and Justin, thank you very much. And we hope that this was only a first step into your digital credential journey and that you are now ready to get started and to start exploring. Thank you, and hopefully see you at next webinar we'll organize. Goodbye.